Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
As always, the Ramble is sponsored by Action Coach Sheffield. If you're a growing business and you want support to continue that growth, they are the people to speak to. Thank you for joining the team for their continued support for the Ramble. Today's Ramble is sponsored by Wellstoned Landscapes. From lawn to luxury, creating outdoor elegance. Wellstoned Landscapes covers most areas of Yorkshire. If you mention the Ramble when asking for a quote, you'll receive 10% off any work. Call Paul or find him on Facebook in the details below. What is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble. It's like I've never been away. How are we all doing? I'm, of course, Jimmy, and this is the breaking news that is the Sheffield United retained list. Told you to keep it rambling. Have you got those notifications on? Everybody here must have those notifications on. Thank you for that. For those that haven't, check yourselves before you wreck yourselves. That's what we used to say when I was cool. 20, 25, 30, maybe never, to be honest. Sheffield United have released their retained list. Let's have a little look at what they've had to say, because, truth be told, I saw a couple of things popping up in terms of what it meant for the retained list. I haven't read it in full, so I'm going to read it with you guys for the first time in full. I've obviously skimmed it. I know the headline points, and then it was straight on, because I was out when it came in. Straight on, get a thumbnail done, get a couple of other bits to show on screen for you guys, and let's read it together. So here we go. There's a statement been released by Sheffield United to just clarify their retained list. And for those that aren't aware, the retained list comes out at the end of the season. Every club announces, not that they have to, but it's become a bit of a habit, really. I think it's more a case of letting supporters know what the situation is with the playing squad, because all they have to do is let the EFL know. They don't have to let the players know. I just think it's widely to communicate with supporters, something that a lot of people have been critical of in the past, but every team seems to do this. So this is what happens. It's a case of, we're not renewing this player, we're in talks with this player, these players are still under contract, and this is Sheffield United's list. So the statement reads, Sheffield United can now confirm our retained list following the conclusion of the 24-25 season. The club are in discussions with Ryan Brewster, whilst the rest of the first team squad remained under contract. So nobody from the first team squad has been released as of yet. We're still in discussions with Ryan Brewster. If we remember, Chris Wilder dropped a little nugget in recently about, oh, well, Jack's going to trigger the appearances clause anyway in his contract. It's the first I'd heard of it at that point. And after that, we still got no further clarity. But this statement clarifies that. Defender Jack Robinson met the criteria of appearances, which automatically triggered a one-year contract extension. Hang on a second. Eki out Sal trying to ring me. I hope that don't mean that you can't hear me or anything. Let me just double check. Can you hear me all right? Because Eki out Sal is usually watching these things. She's probably telling me that the return list is there. And look what's happened here, because I'm rushing. Okay, let's get back to the list anyway. I can only assume that you can hear me. Right. It continues. Loanees, Alfie Gilchrist. I vaguely remember Alfie Gilchrist. Did he play for us up to January or something like that? Never to be seen of again. Maybe one fleeting appearance since then. It's no surprise to see Alfie Gilchrist return to Chelsea. Wish him all the best. I thought he did a good job for us. I thought he hit a sticky patch of 1 or 2 games, which is to be expected from a young player. He's not playing in his preferred position. We were playing him at right back, which, to be fair, cards on the table, we brought him in for that reason, didn't we? So he knew the deal when he was coming in, but he had 1 or 2 sticky games, I thought, and never really got back in. Alfie Gilchrist returns, as does Rob Holding. Harry Souttar technically was still under contract with Sheffield United, but has been back at Leicester since January, since his injury, since Christmas time, I think it was. Jezrin Raksaki, what do we think of Jez? What do we think of Jezrin Raksaki's season with us? He came with such fanfare, and that's not his fault, by the way. This is a young player. I'm not asking people to hammer him in the comments. That's not what we're about anyway. But do you look back on it as a success? Do you look back on it as he didn't get enough chances to, or enough straight starts in the team or a run in the team to have a real go at it? I ultimately think it was disappointing. I expected more from him, and I can't necessarily say that's his fault. Ben Burton Diaz. Oh, sorry. Harry Clark returns. Again, a bit of a nothing signing, really. Unfortunately, it just didn't work for Harry Clark. But it was a bit of a perplexing one at the time as well, because we still had Alfie Gilchrist. Ben Burton Diaz, another one really, really disappointing since his return. Unfortunately, I think his outputs started off really well, but his performances were never really up to that level, I don't think. And I'm not surprised to see him not be kept on. We had an option on Ben Burton Diaz. It was a high option to take him permanently. And I think it was more or less a foregone conclusion that he'd go back. And Hamza Chowdhury returned to their parent clubs. That is the big one. I've included him on the thumbnail, Hamza, because we had an option on Hamza, and he finished the season as our starting right back, which is not his traditional position, but he has played there previously for Leicester. Interesting that we chose not to take up that option. I didn't think we would. I think I mentioned that on the stream yesterday, but it's very interesting to see. We're obviously starting with a fairly clean slate in that regard. So to round all that up, basically, we are still in discussions with Ian Brewster, who's not yet signed a contract. So there's no guarantees that he will stay, because we've been in negotiations with him for months. Jack Robinson does stay. He triggered an extension clause in his contract, and he stays. All the loan players return, whether they had options or not. We have chosen not to exercise those options on the players that we did have. So that is where we stand. First team players under contract in alphabetical order. Anel Ahmedhodzic for now. Ollie Arblaster, get in. Andre Brooks, Harrison Burrows, Jefferson Caceres, Tyrese Campbell, Tom Cannon, Michael Cooper, Adam Davis, Tommy Davis, Ivo Gerbic, the forgotten man, including the forgotten man in my video yesterday. So Ivo Gerbic still under contract to Sheffield United. Gus Hamer. Is he a Sheffield United player? I thought he'd signed for Leeds. Oh, hasn't he gone? Oh, well, that's a bonus to know that our best player's actually a Sheffield United player rather than a Leeds player. Sam McCallum, Kiefer Moore, Reese Norrington Davis, one of the most unfortunate men in the building. Christian Wachukwu, I'm going with. Callum O'Hare, Siddy Peck, Jack Robinson, Femi Sariki, Jamie Shackleton, and the man that joins us in the boozer, Mr. Vinny Souza. They are all under contract to Sheffield United, believe it or not, despite what you may read elsewhere. First team players out of contract and in discussions, as noted above, is Ian Brewster. First team loan players returning to their parent clubs, we have already just gone through. That was the formalities of what they were saying. It then goes on, and I won't sort of stick to this for too long. But the development squad that are still under contract, we've got Sam Aston, Alfie Atherton, Jamal Baptiste, Javan Beatty, son of Craig, Billy Blacker, very highly thought of, Jilly Buyaboo, who has previously, in seasons gone by, been in and around the first team at championship level. Not this season, though. Sam Curtis, who I wouldn't be surprised to see moved on due to the size of his wages in the summer, but we shall see. We do need a right back. So I'm not saying he will be anywhere near the level, but he's a young lad. And can he kick on and make a claim to challenge maybe Femi Sariki in that spot until we bring somebody else in? Evan Easton, Luke Faxon, Marshall Francis, Miguel Freckleton, Antoine Hackford, Owen Hampson, Louis Marsh, Ryan One, Lennon Patterson, new signing, Jaden Prunty, Dovi Sasnaukas, Sai Sachdev, who we are all looking forward to seeing return from his horrific injury, Zayn Tahir, Jay Tinsdale, and Jack Waldron. The most rewarding thing about reading that list to me is I recognise a lot of the names. So they have all been, or the majority of them have been spoken about at different stages. So I don't expect everybody to know a lot of those names. But for somebody who studies it literally for a job now, I'm delighted to know that some of our main boys are still a big part of the youth setup. Development squad players released, and we'll talk a little bit about these. Harry Boys, probably the biggest name on the list. Ethan Cummins, Mecky Horton-Paris, and Henry Molyneux. I don't know a lot about these boys, to be honest, literally, if you pardon the pun. But Harry Boys was once seen as a real prospect, and he was going to be the man to challenge Reece Norrington-Davies for that permanent left back / left wing back spot when it was Reece Norrington-Davies that was the man to get in front of a couple of years ago. It's now obviously Harrison Burrows, Sam McCallum's in the squad as well, who are all in front of Harry Boys. And it's just unfortunate because he's had a couple of League One loans, or he's had several League One loans that didn't work out for him. He didn't really pull up any trees, and unfortunately, he didn't quite kick on. But I'm sure Harry Boys will go on to be a good player for someone. Maybe League One, possibly League Two level to start him off. But there's definitely a player in there. Mecky Horton-Paris, don't know an awful lot about him. I believe he's an attacking player, but not seen him play, to be honest. Somebody asked me about him not so long since in terms of their club being interested in him, and I had to defer because I don't know an honest answer about it. Ethan Cummins had a really bad injury at one stage and came back from it, but hasn't been able to establish himself with a new contract. And Henry Molyneux, a goalkeeper that was highly thought of at one stage, but again, Sheffield United, historically, and also through the youth ranks, have historically brought through really strong goalkeepers. So he's not getting in front of Luke Faxon. Henry Molyneux is released as part of that quartet that will be leaving Sheffield United. Scholarship year ones under contract. I believe this is the sort of youth contracts, if you like. I know they're called scholarship year ones, which obviously speaks for itself. But you look at the next column, which we'll talk about, and these are the lads where I don't know too many of them. Abara is the first player mentioned. Siem Ayob Abraha, sorry, apologies. Sam Colchin, who we've seen in and around like first team teased at times. He's been on the bench. Uncle Chris, I believe, is in our Platinum Ramblers group. So thank you to Chris for your continued support. Arlo Cobra, Franklin Gordon, Ben Granger, Alfie Huff, Theo Howard, Jaden McAlera, Riley McLaughlin, Aaron Reed, Lamine Sidibe, Dylan Tawazera, and Alfie Veners. So whilst I knew most of the existing youth setup, I didn't blag that very well that I knew any of these, did I, to be honest? So other than our boy Sam, I'm struggling with these. Hopefully they become a lot more well-known names and established with us as they progress. But obviously these are the younger end. These are the year one scholarships. The year twos that we already know a little bit about that are in discussions, if you like. So that is those that are trying to get into the development squad. Archie Christie Craney, Zach Giggs, son of Ryan, Colby Hewitson, Frankie Jones, Seth Okiere, and Jackson Blaze. I have heard of all of them, to be fair. Don't know too much about them, but I've heard the names. And this is where they need to become a little bit more household, don't they, in terms of Sheffield United to establish themselves. And 2 year 2 scholarships have been released, and that is Noah Kiwamya and Jay Long. Again, I've heard the name Noah Kiwamya. Don't know much about Jay Long, and just wish him all the best going forward. So, what do we think? Obviously, the main eyes are on the first team players. No permanent Sheffield United contracted player has been released at this stage. The only one in danger of that at some stage, if we can't come to terms, is Ryan Brewster. Jack Robinson stays. Hamza Chowdhury is the headline. And when I say the headline, I believe it was the most likely that he may stay. But Hamza Chowdhury leads all of our loan players in returning to their parent clubs. So what do you make of that, Blades? Let's get into it. What are you saying? What are you saying to me this afternoon? Return list, says Scott. Nothing changes. All under contract. Same options. Shame options wasn't taken on Hamza, but I understand the call with wages and other options being out there. Sly says O'Hare to Leeds needs to happen. Not going to happen, but thanks for joining us, Sly. I hate people calling him Robbo. Robbo sounds affectionate. It's easy. It's easy to do, isn't it, Dave, to be fair? Robbo. I would rather us get a real right back instead of Hamza. Harsh way of determining it, but I agree, if that makes sense. So I think we need a specialist there. We need a legit right back. Not that he hasn't done a good job, because he has. And he can certainly do a job there. But I think, for example, if you get Jimmy Dunn in, and then you're independently looking at centre halves, then Jimmy Dunn is your solution for me. Nothing major on there. Let's build again and go again, says Mark Meldrew. Up the Blades, up the Ramble, up the positive Meldrew. Yeah, I think we can look at it quite positively, can't we? Not that it was expected to be much different from what it is, but you never know, do you? Scott wants to know if Leeds are becoming Blades B team, if they're after Callum O'Hare. Nothing new. Only Brewster in talk, says Steve. Thanks, mate, but we are making a video out of it. Harry says Robinson shouldn't be playing for us next season. In my opinion, he's not good enough. Hope Radoni interest is real. I think it's slightly speculative, to be honest. I got an early story from a good source, to be fair, and I appreciate the EFL analysis lads for collaborating with us and giving us the information early. It's a good source, but there's nothing. We're at the very, very early stages. I'm sure it is a player that is of interest to us, but how far down the line Sheffield United can get when there will be significant interest in him, certainly from the top of the Championship. And in that now you have to include Southampton and Leicester and probably Ipswich if they want to have a sniff. If they lose Amari Hutchinson or somebody around that ilk, they're obviously losing a huge attacking threat in Liam Delap. They will have competition for him. And that's if the lower end Premier League teams aren't interested. Sorry, Matt and Sophie. Enjoy the champ again, lad, says Paul. Where's your mods when you need them? Great Band says, interesting to see the two data signed wingers in January on the list under first team players. Could they have a part to play next season, Jim? That's a really good point, Great Bands. Really good point. So, yes, in the first team players list, there's Jefferson Caceres and there is also Christian Wachuku. So, Jeff is 21, I believe. So he's on the cusp of that, where he's going to be a little bit too old to play strict for. He can play for the under 21s as an overage player, can't he? But he's a first team player in terms of age. I think Chris is 19, so he could have easily been wedged in with the younger ones, couldn't he? It's just not happened. Interesting. Great point, Great Bants. Rich says, Hamer and Cooper to Leeds for 20 million. Give Sheffield United a chance to reinvest into the squad. Keep dreaming. Dave says, enjoy it more than you will in the prep. Well, look, we're not talking to Leeds people. This is a Sheffield United retained list. Not if they're going to give us some stick. R&D, Robinson and Brewster need to go, says Dublin Blade, for flip's sake. Loud and clear, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know what Eki outside were doing then. She must have just been leaving work or something. Loud and proud, Jim. 10K by opening day. 10K by the time kickoff is underway. Be nice, wouldn't it? Be nice, that. 8114 we're on at the minute. Really proud of that. Thank you, everybody. Can't believe we're paying Robinson for another season. Shocking, says Dan. Great Bant says, just feel Robbo, like Robbo and Wilder is like an annoying and loud toy to the kid. Take it off the kid and it can't be tempted to play with it. We need to release Robbo to stop him being used in R11. Lee says, on the way to the chiropractors to get my back manipulated and just seeing the retained list, going to ask them to be a bit rougher to take the pain of Jackie Longthrow's extension away. Yeah, stick that elbow in. I can take it. Hi, Jim. Hope all is well. What chances you see for Hamer going to Leeds? I don't know, is the honest answer. I don't know. I think it's 60-40 that he leaves. That's what I said yesterday. Today, I'm a bit 55-45. It's coming down a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily the big layup that everybody thinks. Can't believe we're paying Robinson for another year. Man can't defend. That's what you're correct in your comment, I think, weren't it, earlier, Dan? Finn says Jack Robinson is a more solid Championship centre half, a very good backup defender. Not sure what the problem is with giving him another year. Because, Finn, he's not been a backup, has he? He's been captain and starting captain. That's the issue. I think we would all take him if he was recognised as a fourth choice central defender. But he's not. He's, at the minute, it appears to be that he's the first name on the team sheet. And it's the perception by the club of his value that is the concern, not the fact that he is at the club, if that makes sense. I think he's massively overrated by a lot of people at the club. And that, again, is just my opinion. Matty says, I think Raksaki had a decent season. If he was less selfish and crossed the ball more, he might have had a great season with us. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Robbo extension will be a good backup option. It would be, Scott, an okay backup option. You look at how many of the relegated sides does he get in terms of Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton? None. Would he get in? I'm not going to go through this list again. I'm not going to go through it because everybody knows my thoughts. Chip Butty says, Brewster needs to go. These wages are way too high. We don't know what his wages are going to be in the new contract offer. And I think that's been a part of the delay, that he's not going to get that sort of money again. Brewster doesn't want the champ. Hard lines. One of them, isn't it? He's not going to get a Prem move, is he? So he'll have to lower his expectations if that's true. I'm not entirely sure that is true, if I'm honest. Wouldn't mind Brewster as long as he's realistic over his wages, says Dan. I think that's fair. Rian Brewster, baby. Rian Brewster, says a hopeful Beast Boy because he's not signed yet, pal. We've been talking to him for a long time. Dublin Blade says Robbo is the new Lundstrom, another undroppable. Stubborn, I'll show you. The stubborn I'll show you display by Wilder, and Robinson had 3 good games out of a 49-game season. Stevie says Hamza should be bought. I've never ever seen a United player with so many interceptions. His ball winning and tackling were exceptional, and he had the best hair I've ever seen of a United player. And if that's not a reason to sign him, I don't know what is. He won't be signed, Steve. He's gone back, mate. We have not chosen not to take up the option. Not going to happen now, I'm afraid. Beast Boy says Gerbic should stay, would provide good competition and deserves another chance after a good spell abroad. Has he had a good spell abroad? I know he was doing very well abroad and then got quite a serious head injury. And I don't know how much he's played since. But that will not be a problem next season because we have got Lonely. Yes, we've got Lonely. Good evening, Jim Bob. Here we go. Vinicius Sousa to Leeds. So you want Sousa, Hamer, Cooper, anybody else you want that you're jealous of in our team? Fair dues, lads. Fair dues. So 22-man squad before the madness starts. Yeah, there'll be some wheelie dealing, won't there, Luke? There'll be some wheelie dealing. I think what we need to also look at is looking at these players retained, which we'll do in a different list. Who would you keep? Anel, Blaster, Brooks, Burrows, Caceres, does he go on loan? Does Brooks go out on loan? Ty Campbell, Tom Cannon, Michael Cooper, Adam Davis, Tom Davis, Ivo Gerbic, Sam McCallum, does he stay? Some will say Kiefer Moore needs to go, but I would disagree. Reece Norrington Davis, does he stay? Chris, does he go out on loan? Callaway stays, obviously. Sidney Peck will struggle to hold on to, I think. Jack Robinson's here. Femi Sariki. Jamie Shackleton can go for me. Vinny Sousa. There'll be some wheelie dealing, won't there? There needs to be. Where were I in comments? I knew I'd lose it after putting that on. Rian would start next season for us. Everyone who says otherwise is a liar. Depends what sort of standard we're bringing in. If we're of the similar standard to last season, then yeah, he's got a chance. He has got a chance. So it's not a layup by any means. BBD was underwhelming, only because of the inept management of playing him out of position, says Steve. People will agree with that as well. Beast Boy says, I don't even think we need a right back. We've got Curtis and Sariki. Who do we possibly need? They are both solid. We need to focus on centre back and centre midfield. Completely disagree. Completely disagree. I think Curtis is miles off it. He certainly was the last time we saw him. I know he's been out on loan and they can develop. Sariki is certainly not the complete fullback. I think he's got Bogle syndrome. So love watching him go forward. Terrified when he's left high up the field, out of position, can't get back. Johnny says, slightly disappointed with Hamza. He can play a number of positions. Would have loved to have signed Holding, but I'm not surprised for whatever reason. Seemed not fancied, as sadly didn't get the minutes. Yeah, that's the shame for me. I think Hamza was the most likely to sign, but the most disappointing to not sign is Rob Holding. I think he improves us significantly. Wingers not even a big need, as well as we have Caceres and Brooks on the right. Really don't get why we're banging on for wingers. Beast Boy, I think you are misjudging the levels significantly, to be honest. You would be happy with Femi Sariki and Sam Curtis at right back, and Caceres, who we've never seen, who's come from the equivalent to National League, and Andre Brooks, who is very good in spells, but also quite poor in other spells because he's just inconsistent and needs more minutes. You would be happy with that as a right-hand side. I would be very much concerned. Kyle says, surely we can get a better player on loan who's on similar wages to Brewster. Yeah, but it's now about cutting those wages out, isn't it? That's what it'll be. And he won't be on the same massive wages that we originally signed him on because he'll have had a relegation reduction clause. Alfie Gilchrist was a steady away defender, played again out of position because he's a right-hand centre-back. Wish him all the best. Well said, Steve. I agree with that. Benedictine says it's good that we only have one first-team player out of contract. It is good, and it shows the better planning and preparation, doesn't it, that's going into the squad build. Gav says, time for Brewster to move on. Enjoyed watching Hamza. Yeah, he's been a good player for us. Sousa wanting to stay, rumoured, will be a huge boost to the squad, and Wilder. I'm not sure about that. I saw the article you sent me, Scott. I haven't read it yet, but I've felt the vibe in our chat. I would take it with a pinch of salt, to be honest. A lot of similar noises were coming out around Sanderberger, if we remember rightly. I want to stay. I love this club. Get me a move. Get me a move. I'm not staying here. Not in this hole. Not at this level. Not a chance. Can we take Hamer, please, Jim? No. Johnny says, Jacko and Rian have been brilliant servants for the club, but time to wish them well. A year too long if they stay and fall off further in the levels of performance, but didn't expect anything different. Me neither, pal, unfortunately. I don't mean about Brewster particularly. I think Brewster did enough towards the end. My concerns about Brewster, which again I've been vocal about, is that he's been playing for a deal. He's been playing because he's in the shop window. So I don't know whether he will be able to maintain the levels that he has the back end of the season, because he's been very good towards the end of the season. I wonder if Wilder will find the right setup for us this year. To be seen, isn't it, Jace? Look, whatever concerns we have about the system, and Steve Holmes has talked about him tactically inept at playing players out of position, and I understand why that's frustrating for people. But look at the season we've had. Look at the position we've finished in. That will always be his counter, won't it? That will always be, look at where we are. So, yeah, I didn't necessarily agree with the setup. I spoke to a lot of people over the past few days that didn't either. But it's been a very successful system, whether we've scraped through certain games or whichever way you want to determine it, it's been a winning system. Jimmy's face when Robbo came up. Ben says, afternoon, Jimmy, that first team squad will look very different in a few weeks. Fingers crossed. I think Brewster will move on. I do too. Brick and Lee with his head held high. Reece Norrington Davis and Shackleton need to move on. Up all the rambles, up the blades, like and subscribe. The one thing I will say, Ben, is I agree with your points. I think Brewster will move on. I think we might try and move Reece Norrington Davis and Jamie Shackleton on as well as new players come into the club. The one thing I'm thinking about Jack Robinson is, yes, he's played him, and he's played him over Rob Holding, and he's stuck with him consistently, been very loyal to him. But it wasn't a club decision to renew him. It was an automatic trigger. And it was an automatic trigger because he played in so many games, which obviously is in his favour for, being fancied. But we haven't actively entered negotiations on a new contract or anything like that with him. We haven't been... We could have easily said, right, rather than extend you by a year, we're losing a Nell at the end of next season. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and talk to you about a 2 or 3 year deal, Jack, if that's what you fancy. We haven't done that, have we? So I'm not sure we are 100% convinced on Jack. I think, if we get off... I say this more in hope than in expectation, because we've had a great defender there in Rob Holding that we haven't used. And we've had the chance to use him over Jack Robinson. But this is me clutching at straws. You've got to do it, haven't you, at times? Good name, Robbo, says Steve. Yes, I agree. Kieran says, afternoon, Jimmy, up the blades, up all the rambles, like and subscribe, guys. Just a name I'd like to chuck in there where I like and would look good in the United squad if Hamer was to go. And that's the lad at Watford. Very good feet. Check Vatadze. Is that who you mean? Yeah, he's a fancied one. Look, the problem is Watford have found him from abroad, haven't they? They've pulled him from somewhere and got him. And now he's going to be worth 10, 15 million maybe. Don't know what sort of price they'd be commanding for him. They've done... Why do we have to wait till they're established players at the level before we go and splash a ridiculous amount of money on them? This is what the data-driven recruitment model is all about. It's finding Czech Vitadzes when they are 2 million quid rather than when they're 10 million quid. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So if we bring in a couple of players that we don't know about, like Caceres and Chris Achukwu or whatever he's called, I don't think those two. I think those two are dipping our toes in the water. I don't think they are expected to be first team impact players. But don't be surprised if we go for a foreign name abroad for 5 million quid as opposed to a Jack Redoni, for example, and hope that it works out for us, because I think that's the approach that we've been told that we're moving closer towards. Robbo is better than Anel, in my opinion, says Benjamin Baboon. He says that 3 times, actually, in the comments. Professor P says McBurnie available on a free. I hope you're not listening, Dad. If he can break his contract due to their relegation, apparently he wants to come back to England. Any interest, Jim? Not interest from me. I believe there might be a sniff from the club, if I'm honest. So, could he fit in with this current squad? Maybe. What you don't want is him to be the main man. And he wouldn't be, I don't think, at this stage. But would he be happy with that? I'm not sure. We'd have to go back to 2 up top, wouldn't we? If we bring in McBurnie alongside Moore, Campbell and Cannon, you've got to go 2 up top then. Because otherwise, nobody's going to come. The Blunt Yorkshireman says Robinson isn't a backup. He always finds his way into the first team. I can't believe he's got a contract that let him choose to stay. That was, yeah, again, I can't speak. Scott says, I wonder if Hamza not being bought is because Dunn is likely in a few days. I would say there might be some legs to that, Scotty. Hey up, Fish says, is that my mate, Fish? Robinson looked past it 2 years ago, let alone now. Pat Wilder's in a gang along with Moore. He'll never be dropped. Interesting. Dublin Blade. So this means Andy the Blade won't need to wear a Chowdhury wig. Boo. I was looking forward to that. We'll just have to sign another player with an afro and he can get his wig on again. Phil says, hi, Jimmy. Congrats on getting over 8K. Thank you, pal. Now the season is done. What are your plans over the summer up the full-time Ramble? We've got loads coming, to be honest. I'm going to be sitting down with, me and Andy the Blade will be back next week, which is brilliant to have him return to the channel. We've got 3MB. We've got watch-alongs through the summer on Behind the Ramble. We've got all sorts of content, and transfers will be the talk of the town, won't they? So now the retained list is out, we can start talking about the squad build and stuff like that. I think it gets really interesting from this point because we know where the land lies, don't we? And yes, it's expected, but it's clarity, and that's what we've been needing. So it's going to be really interesting. Finn says, do you think that it's physically possible to sell Gerbic this summer? Can't see any reason why anyone would buy him. Flopped in Turkey as well, didn't he? No, I don't think he flopped, pal. I don't think he flopped. I think he did okay from what I understand, certainly before his injury, but I'm not sure of his status now. I think if he comes back, he's certainly number 2 to Michael Cooper and not pushing it. But is he a good number 2? Possibly. Yeah, he is. Adam Davis then maybe moves to a 3. And Luke Faxon might get out on loan. That's an expensive thing to do if it's equivalent to Gerbic's wages that he's seeing Faxon go out on loan. But we have got a strong-ish backup there. There was a lot of hype around Gerbic when he first came in and a big spotlight on him. Maybe there's a redemption arc to be in there somewhere. Neil says, let's be honest, Brewster, not really in a good position, as who will take him with his record over the last 5 years and his wage bill? I was saying last night, I won't be surprised to see him go somewhere like SPL, Celtic or Rangers to take him. They pay big money. The standard isn't great. He could look good in that division and end up playing Champions League football, couldn't he? So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see that. Professor P says, bring back McTurney, pair him with Campbell. Better than Moore when playing well, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe. You won't convince me, Dad, but yeah, possibly. We get relegated relying on that right-hand side, says Toddy. I don't like it either. I don't like that suggestion from Beast Boy. And again, it's opinions, pal. And you're entitled to yours, but I think it's too weak, way too weak and very young. Dublin Blade says, I championed Curtis before, and when we signed him, but if I'm honest, he's a country mile off what we need. Unfortunately, it isn't good enough yet. And that's the key, Dublin Blade. He's a very young lad still, not good enough yet. He hasn't quite had the trajectory that we're all hoping for. It's been a little bit stunted, hasn't it? But these things happen. Players develop at different levels. Mitch says, The retain list means absolutely nothing to me. As long as we keep Wilder and nil, I know for sure we'll be up there. Yeah, I agree with that, pal. I agree. It means nothing to us because we weren't expecting any big hitters to leave, and they haven't thus far. Unfortunately, Wilder retained, says Wilder's number one hater, who was very unhappy with us finishing third in the league on 92 points and beating Sheffield Wednesday twice. So sorry you had such a terrible season to endure. Michael says, hi, Jimmy. Do you think we might get Suter back next season up the Blades, up the Ramble? No, I don't, if I'm honest. I think Leicester being in the same league as us makes it daft for them if he is fit, which is another reason why we wouldn't sign him if he's not fit. But it would be daft for Leicester to sell him to us. Bry Cassidy, one of our mods, did point out that when he signed for us, there were some interesting comments as he signed for us saying it's nice to be treated like a footballer again. So he's clearly not happy at Leicester. But whether that actually means anything in the grand scheme of things, I'm not sure. He did post actually on Instagram yesterday that there was the group picture that's, I think, is still pinned on the United X page. He posted on Instagram the picture of the whole group of United team when they're on the pitch holding George's shirt, and he put this group with a love art just yesterday, Harry Suter. So still holds a lot of affection for Sheffield United. He obviously was one of the rare cases where he came back to United during his injury period after he knew his season were written off, and got a huge round of applause from the live crowd. Usually there's something in that, but the thing that could potentially scupper it is his injury status. Deef says not activating the options doesn't necessarily mean we won't go in for another loan or cheaper fee later on. That's true, but it's unlikely, isn't it? It's unlikely. I think from what I understand, I don't think that I'm betraying any trust by sort of making this public now. From what I understand, the fees agreed were £10 million for Ben Burton Diaz, which we've obviously not activated, and I think that's the right decision, and £5 million for Hamza Chowdhury. And again, I can understand why we haven't done that, because I know it sounds like a good deal, and he is worth £5 million. But if we're going to get a right back in like Jimmy Dunn for free, then it becomes less of an option, in my opinion, considering what we've got in centre midfield as well. Alessandro says retained release list is much healthier than last year, which we can thank Wilder for. I think Robbo is good depth, but scapegoated. But he's not depth, is he, Alessandro? That's why he gets scapegoated, because people, and I don't mean to generalise, I'll just give you my opinion. He's not good enough for the first team in a team pushing for automatic promotion. And that's why he gets not scapegoated, but highlighted as a weak link. He'd be scapegoated if he was definitely a depth option and only in temporarily until his lead man was back recovered. But he is seen to be not only a starting centre-back, but the captain of the club. And some of the behaviour that he's displayed across the season is shameful. I could go into it quite heavily, really, and I'm not gonna, because he's a blade and I want to support him and I don't want to turn the tide on him or anything like that. I'll always come in on here and be honest, and I have taken a lot of stick for my opinion on Robinson, but I'd rather be honest with you than just shilt here about, oh, well, he's a blade, so we'll all support him. Ultimately, he is a blade and we will support him. But I'm not just going to sugarcoat it like, yeah, and he does make the odd mistake and stuff, when really that's not my thoughts. You wouldn't want me to come on and be fake with you in any way. Or, yeah, we've just got to get behind him. I will get behind him, but I can also think by the same token, he's not good enough. So whenever he's wearing the shirt, we'll cheer him on. No one around us, and we're not encouraging anybody. When he got booed when he came on and stuff like that, I think it's shocking. You don't boo your own players. But I can also be of the opinion that he's not good enough for a promotion chase in Sheffield United. And that's just my honest opinion. I don't want him representing my club as a captain. But if he does, then I'll respect the decision of the club. Mikey says, Jim, where does the confidence of keeping your big players, buying new players and staying within PSR limits come from? Felt bad you guys didn't come up for you, but not Sheffield United. Top work, mate. Thank you, pal. I'm not... So when you're asking me about individuals, like, do you think Hamer's going to Leeds? Do you think all this? I can tell you no, I don't think he is necessarily, and I'm more confident he stays. That doesn't mean we still don't have to sell. Firstly, we don't know what the new owners are all about. They may choose, because Prince Abdullah did this when we failed to get promotion, when Hecky was in charge. He sucked it up, took the loss on the chin, the financial loss, and didn't sell our best players, which was the reason we then went on to get promoted the following season. And the new owners could do exactly the same. We might not have to sell anybody, but if we do, we've got several assets that we can sell. So it doesn't have to be Gus Hamer. So I'm not saying we won't sell anybody. I'm expecting to lose 2, possibly 3 of our players that in an ideal world we would keep. But it doesn't have to be Gus Hamer. But it also doesn't have to be Vinny Souza. It might be one of those 2. I think it might be a left field one like Ryan One going in a similar deal to Willa Sula going previously last season, which nobody really saw. Ryan One could easily go for the same sort of money, 10 to 15 million, because that's the ceiling that clubs see in them. I think Siddy Peck will have an awful lot of interest this summer, and he could move. So we don't want to lose Siddy, but when we've got Ollie Arblaster to step in there, then it's doable. I think Anel will go because he's in the last year of his contract. So if we sell Anel, Peck and One, then there's no reason to sell Michael Cooper, Gus Hamer, Vinny Souza. And yes, they might all want to leave. I certainly don't think that's the case, but they might all want to leave. But the contract is in the club's favour. So that's why I have confidence that we will be. We don't know who's going to leave yet, ultimately. And that's where I am with Mikey. It's not a case of we're Sheffield United and we're not going to sell anybody. I don't want that to be misconstrued in any way. But I am confident that it's not just going to be a fire sale. I've been saying for the last 6 months that I think Hamer, Anel, and Souza will all leave if we don't get promoted. I can still see that happening. But I also think because of what happened in the summer, last summer, where bids come out of left field for players you're not expecting, I could see Siddy Peck moving on. I could see Ryan One moving on, which then negates the need to sell other big ticket players. Josh says Souza staying would be a shock. We all saw his attitude at the end of last season. Alessandro says, I think it's a right back, 3 centre backs, 4 if Anel leaves, and 2 wingers. Yeah, we had the big winger conversation the other day, didn't we? Scoring more than 1 goal a game would be a benefit. Yes, it would. Goal difference between us, Leeds and Burnley speaks volumes. It does, but they were outliers. Those 2 sides were outliers. If it were one side, we'd all be saying how brilliant they were and one of the best teams ever. Because it were 2, it kind of dampens the achievements of each a little bit. I genuinely think that they were outliers in this division. So yes, it'd be much better as a Blade to be more comfortable in games. But you can't take away how good Leeds and Burnley have been this season or last season, however you want to determine it now. So it's not as easy as that, is it? Ian says, give Brewster what he wants and make him captain. You joke about that, Ian, but at times when Robinson's not been on the field and obviously Arblaster aren't been available, Brewster's worn the armband, hasn't he? Couldn't agree more, Ian says, Beast Boy. You two loving it up about Ryan Brewster, the tag team presidents of his fan club. Oh, Ryan, thank you so much, pal. Gifting 1 Blades Ramble membership. So thank you, pal, making somebody a Rambler. Appreciate that. And it's Mikey. Mikey, nice one, pal. Are you actually a Blade, Mikey? And I'm not sure you are because you're big players. So I think that's a Leeds fan that's picked that up. Smash a like and subscribe, please, says Danny Talks Sport. Thank you, Dan, doing us a solid there. We are on, what are we on? Oh, 8116 now. That's very good. Thank you, everybody that's joining us. 800 people here, just after school pickup as well. Thank you. I know you'll all be going off for your tea soon, so I'll try not to keep you, but Ben says, I agree, Jim. Robinson has got a new contract by a technicality rather than earned, I would say. I wouldn't be confident as in being our starting centre-back next season. Mikey says, cheers, and Ryan gives him a thumbs up. The Saint says, thank you, Ryan, I appreciate that. The Saint says, can see Brewster going now. I think other championship clubs will pay more than we will offer. You could also see him at somewhere like a Birmingham, couldn't you? I certainly could. They will pay big money out, and they need to obviously quickly strengthen their squad with championship players, and they're going to be offering big money. So Nige says, Afternoon, Jimmy. Only just calmed down from the loss, and it was a club's message to the fans that calmed me down and reset me. Brewster needs to go. End of Robbo strips to the captaincy. Up the blades, up the ramble, up behind the ramble. Thank you, mate. Call it a shopping list. John Joe Kenny, Jimmy Dunn, Harry Darling, Sorensen from Norwich, and Free if Vinny leaves. I've not seen enough of him, Alessandro, to be honest. Tyrese Dolan is a no from me. Poku is a yes. Dean Garner, I don't think we'll get. And Risa, all frees too. Risa, where does Risa fit in? If we're sticking with one up top, where does Risa fit in? I don't think we need a striker. I think I'd like to go back to two up top, but I want Callum O'Hare in behind him, if I'm honest. Super Positive Jack says a much healthier return list, but still a lot of work to be done. Slapped a £20 million price tag on our star players and build. Definitely need two midfielders, three centre backs, a right back, and two wingers. I do not understand this winger system, I have to say. Chris says if Hamer goes, United want Jack Radoni from Coventry. Mattis B won't be happy, and I've already given him a nudge about that. Deef says I try and sign BBD and play him up front. He's a proven scorer. He scored more in one season for Blackburn than Cannon has scored in his entire career combined. I don't think we'll go back in for any of our loan players now. I'll be very surprised. Johnny the Clown says, remember Jack was in the first 11 until Suter got injured. So living hope wasn't, you mean, I think, don't you? In the first 11 until Suter got injured. So living hope. I certainly do, pal. Rob says, who out of your retained players would make the biggest hole if sold on? Hamer? Yes, Hamer. Undoubtedly, Rob. I think he's our big difference maker. And some people are saying he's the one that we can afford to lose because then we may become more of a team rather than reliant on him. But Gus Hamer is undoubtedly the player that would hurt us the most. And a close second would be Michael Cooper, in my opinion. Not that I think Cooper will go anywhere. He's not really been rumoured away. But if we're just asking in terms of who are our main boys, Gus Hamer, shortly followed by Michael Cooper, because I think we've got decent backup in centre midfield in case Vinny were to go or Sidney Peck were to go. Jack says, do we agree that there's no excuses for the squad to have square pegs in round holes this season? He's got all the time in the world, to determine what formation he wants. And once he's got an idea of that, he brings in recruits around it. I don't always think that's been the way we've recruited in recent times, if I'm honest. Footmob says Gerbich did okay, averaging around 6.5 a game, but he was benched a few times too. Interesting, but he had a really bad injury. So maybe that's linked to why he was on the bench or out of contention, Walton, because he was definitely getting in when he first went over. Finn says, I think McBurnie would be our best striker personally. No. Last time we had him in this division, he scored 15 plus goals. I think him and Campbell together would be the best strike force we've had for years. So are you getting rid of the wingers then, Finn, or are you getting rid of Callum O'Hare from the starting lineup? Because to play two up top, that's what you need to do. One or the other. Matty says, I think Hamer will go, unfortunately. But I'm very confident it won't be to Leeds. He'll lose all fan favour. He's just earned just to potentially go straight back down with Leeds with a longer contract. The one thing about Gus is, and normally I would say that's not really done all much water, but he does like to be liked, does Gus, doesn't he? He loves the adulation he gets from Coventry fans, which is well earned, by the way. What a player he was for them as well. He loves the adulation he gets from Blades, and I think he would like to leave in a similar vein, and he wouldn't get that, like Matty says, if he went to Leeds, always coming over, clapping the fans at corners, I'm clapping you, I'm clapping you, give me a clap. And it's a good job. He is such an amazing player, because I do think he's a bit of a panderer, if I'm honest. But he's good enough to get I'll pander to him all day if he wants to ping balls into that top corner like he did against Coventry. Absolutely outstanding footballer. One of the best I've seen at the Lane. So pander all day long and I'll continue to clap you like a puppy. But I think that may play into his decision. I think he might be on something there. You think Holding was an attitude problem, Jimmy? Maybe thought he was too good not to play kind of thing. Honest answer is I've got no idea, Saint. The educated answer would probably be I would be absolutely shocked if he came in with a bit of a big time attitude. Got a chance to speak to him very briefly at the Player Awards, and he was a really, really lovely bloke. Really, really approachable, appreciative, grateful, thankful, all these sort of things for people's support. Watches the channel. Good evening, Rob. I don't just talk highly of you because you're a Rambler. I watch because I talk highly of him because he's a very good player and I liked what I saw from him. So yes, I would be shocked. Can't rule it out, saying can't rule it out, but I would be shocked. Think we'll see the 2 new lads in the squad next season? No, I don't. That's just my opinion. Up the blades, up the ramble, like and subscribe, says Sheffield 1889. Professor P says, let's say Hamer wants to go to Leeds and they put a sensible bid in for him, 20+ million, and we just say, no, you're not going. How bad really is it? Any examples in the past? Surely he's professional about it. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, that's a case across the bridge when you come to it, isn't it, I suppose? Because he is our best player. But also, I don't want a player in our ranks that doesn't want to be here. And Wilder's always said that, to be honest. He doesn't want players who don't want to be here. So that might come into it. Do you think Jake Cooper from Millwall would be a good signing to replace Suter? I think that ship's sailed on Jake Cooper, to be honest. I don't think necessarily that he's not going to get any better now at this stage of his career, in my opinion. And it wouldn't be to replace Suter. It'd be to replace Jack Robinson because he plays on the left-hand side, doesn't he? Chipbutty says, I just hope we don't make the same mistake of signing too many loans again. That was painful. I don't mind loans, Chipbutty. I mean, when we signed McAtee and Doyle, these were players that significantly improved us. Dean Henderson, a brilliant loan. Morgan Gibbs-White, a brilliant loan. So they just didn't come off for us this year. Harry Suter was the standout, wasn't he? And he unfortunately got injured. So, yeah, it's how you utilise those loan spots that's important, isn't it? Harvey says, Sunderland fan here, mate. Thought Chowdhury was a class player when he played the other day. Surprised you haven't chosen to keep him. Obviously, you would have seen more of him than me. Yeah, I thought you had a good game, Harvey. I'd agree with you with that. But I think there are holes in his game that aren't spoken about an awful lot. But that's because he's the best one we've seen at right back this season. And he's not a legit right back. And he's an expensive option at right back to say we've got a chance of getting somebody in for notes. So I think that's what's played its part in it. If any player becomes unprofessional because we refuse to sell him, then they aren't the character we thought they were. End of the day, if the price is right to help us rebuild, you say no. Okay, I know what you mean there, pal. Dave says, hi, Jimmy, up the blades, up the ramble, and like and subscribe. It must be difficult for the club to go shopping when they don't know who will be staying. Risky, but necessary. I think you have, like, for example, now, the club will have identified a Gus Hamer replacement. They will have identified a Vinny Souza replacement, a Sidi Peck replacement, and a Nell replacement. There will be lists for all these scenarios. I would be shocked as well if we hadn't spoken to our Gus Hamer replacement, spoken to our Vinny Souza replacement. That doesn't mean we are signing them anyway. This is us doing our due diligence as a club to get our ducks in a row, if you like. So if Leeds come in on the last day of the window and say, here's 25 million for Gus Hamer, we really want him, this is what we're paying, and we say, actually, that's too good to turn down. But a thing that might scupper that deal is if we haven't got a replacement in. So what we might have is a £10 million replacement lined up somewhere where we say, I'll tell you what then, we will get these two deals synchronized, and as we push the button on this player, we'll sell you Gus Hamer. And that is how it tends to work. So we will be doing saver deals now, if you like, or safety net deals that we don't even plan to do unless an initial trigger action happens, if that makes sense. Danny Boy says, I'd go for a cheeky bid for Helic from Oxford. Tell him, Ramblers. Tell him. Tell this boy, and Danny might know himself because Danny's been with us a long time. What did I say about Helic? What did me and Andy the Blade, one of the few things we agree on was Helic. And I got laughed at in the comments of our own channel. I got laughed at. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Shame on some of you. Shame on some of you that laughed at me when I suggested Helic before he went to Oxford. And now, look at you, Danny boy. I think he would jump at the chance to join us rather than have him. I would rather have him than Robbo in the back line. Oxford improved drastically with him at the back in the back line from January. Yes, they did. Makes sense now, pal. Well explained. Thank you, Mikey. CPTD says, if only we lose him, Only if we only lose Hamer, I would settle for that. Can demand 30 million plus add-ons. We can't. We won't get that amount, pal. No chance we get that much. Hope we keep Sousa and Anel. I think they are the ones that can step up to the Prem in our team, along with Coops. I think we've seen Anel play his last game for United, if I'm honest. Ben says, can see someone like Crystal Palace coming in for Peck, as can I, or a West Ham, somebody of that level. I completely agree. Or even Brentford, someone like that. Jack says, end of the day, they have long contracts. We hold the cards, and if Hamer does stay, get him in the middle where he belongs. 30 million for Hamer, says Kieran. Yeah, I agree. It's too high. It's too high. And it's not too high, C3PO, based on his ability. Because if he was playing even 90% of his levels every week, he is a £30 million player. The thing about Gus Hamer is he's inconsistent, which is frustrating at times. He can be quite sloppy in possession when, he doesn't always concentrate. The big thing is his conditioning. Can't last a full 90 minutes. His discipline's quite poor. So for everything that he gives you that is brilliant, and I am nitpicking there, but for everything that he gives you that is brilliant, that chips away at his value, I think. And I think 20 million is probably about right. I don't think we would want to sell him for 20 million, but I think that is around his value, if I'm honest. Andrew says, Jim, how can you say Robbo's not good enough and at the same time say we've had a fantastic season? He's played in 37 games and same captain this team in this fantastic season. Do you think he's a good defender, Andrew? Do you think he's been the main reason that we've done? And look, this is all about opinions. I can say, how can you say that Robbo's not good enough? Because that's my opinion. I think if we have, this is the difference, Andrew, and I don't know how many blades agree with this, because again, it's subjective. If Harry Souttar stays fit the full season, we are promoted. And Jack Robinson was not getting in alongside Harry Souttar. It was Souttar and Anel that had our fantastic. We were the second best defensive record in the league behind Burnley for a long time, up until Christmas. And Jack Robinson comes in, him and Anel, the 104 twins, and all of a sudden, we can't quite get over the line. That is why. Because we got there in spite of Robbo, in my opinion. And I don't mean to be too harsh on it, but I can justify my thought process all day long on it. If Harry Souttar stays fit, we are in the Premier League right now, because the trajectory we were on in terms of defensive numbers was loads better than it was the second half of the season. And that's no coincidence. Absolutely no coincidence. Tommy says Farker and Parker in the Prem will be on par with Wilder. Terrible. Farker and Parker. Farker and Parker. La, 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 la. A big thank you to all the creators out there. As someone who is ill and doesn't... Oh, sorry to hear that, pal. And doesn't get out much. These podcasts are a godsend from a Leeds fan. Thanks, especially you, Jim. Thank you, mate. That's really kind, and I hope you're okay. Sorry to hear that you're not too well. Like and subscribe, please. 470 watching and only 85 likes. That's because a lot of them aren't on YouTube, I think, Ian, because we've got 900 people in here. But obviously 470 at that time when you put that comment in, we're on YouTube. If the rest that are watching on other platforms want to jump over and subscribe, we're currently at 8118 on our road to 10K. On road to 9K initially, obviously. We don't want to skip past that. It's a bit like saying... we'll enjoy pushing for the Champions League like Leeds are going to do next season when we haven't even got out of the Championship yet. Jack says, we need some goal scorers. Genuinely think our issue this season was with the lack of wingers. I think it's the lack of creativity and creating clear-cut chances. We've seen that when we do create those chances, we've got the players in Tyrese, for example, to finish him off. I think Campbell is a box striker. So, yeah, I think creativity has been a problem. Danny says, personally, if Hamo and Co want to leave, I'd make them stay put. Contract control is in our hands. And if these owners can turn these bids away, then that would show they are serious owners. Make them stay put. Do you really want somebody who don't want to be there, though? I'm not convinced. Having said that, it's a fine balance, isn't it? Because you give the player so much power if you then say, well, it's up to you. If a player knows all he has to do is kick off and he'll get a move that he wants, then that's a balance to strike, isn't it? T-Man MFL says, I think next year is going to be a really strong league. Possibly. Deef says, yeah, I was thinking more about Bembra and Diaz. No way would pay 10 million after the season he's had, but could sneak back in for 5 million plus later on. He's still only 26 and he scored 40 goals in his last 2.5 championship seasons. It wouldn't surprise me if we got him back on loan, you know, because we might say we're not willing to pay that, but we'll take his wages on for another year. So that could be a way around it. If you think he's an asset to us, I do in the championship, but I'm certainly not paying anywhere near 10 bags for him. Not a chance. CB says, Jim Bob, you're the best non-Leeds content creator. Shame you're a Blade. When are you coming over to the dark/white side? Am I not the best creator, including Leeds? That's a very kind thing to say, CB. Obviously, I will never cross the line, and you don't change your team, do you? I know that's we always champion the fact that this is an opinion-based channel, but it is a fact. As Rafa Benitez says, it's a fact. You do not change your team. You don't. It's just a no-no. So you don't get many facts here as opposed to opinions, but that is a fact. Bamford and Melier straight swap for Hamer. How about no? Philip Hall says, we need to go back to the wing-backs. That's the best formation. Don't. You'll get shouted at from a couple of ramblers. I did when I suggested that. That is the best formation for our current crop of players. Yes, we can change it in the summer, but if we were playing a game tomorrow, 3-5-2 is our best option. I'm sticking to it. Yes, I like the 4-4-2 we've ended this season with. Wouldn't be against going back to Wilder's old trusty 5-3-2 either. The tides are turning. Burrows is the perfect wing back, as is Sariki. With Jimmy Dunn as the right centre-back behind him. It writes itself. We need to recruit for the system. We looked dangerous with 2 up top, but I want O'Hare in there. So how do you do that, Jack? How do you do that? The only options with that is if you're sticking with 4 at the back, you have to only have 3 in the middle, no wingers. Because otherwise, it's going to be the 3-4-1-2, which is what we are proposing. I know Finn's saying 3-5-2, and I've phrased it as the 3-5-2. What I mean is the championship with Duffy 3-5-2. So we get a 10 in there. Return list, transfers. Give me a good warm up pre-season trip. Warm pre-season trip. Yeah, I don't know when the pre-season trip is yet. I'm trying to find out. I know where it is, I think. I just need the dates. I probably won't be able to announce that before the club does anyway. But I'm trying to get myself there. That'll be some content, won't it? I saw McTurdy playing for Las Palmas, and only decent thing I saw him do was against Seville when he tried to loaf one of their players. That boat has sailed a bit like £30 million Brewster. How can they keep Robinson and send Holding back? Is Wilder balmy? Because he's triggered it on a technicality, Chris. Sending Holding back, I think he's balmy, but he hasn't played him, has he, to be fair? I heard a Blade say he wouldn't mind Sausage Roll as manager. No one else wants him. We won't give him any money for him. Not a chance. And we've got a manager, thank you very much. I thought we'd already signed Darling being a secret agent. I don't get it. Alessandro says, depending on what the signings are, why not a 3-4-2-1? But the twos are cams behind a striker. Play O'Hare and Hamer tight together. Yep, people have suggested that as well. Don't mind it. It's a bit narrow. In fact, it's very narrow, isn't it? But we'll see. It's an option on the table. Malk Van says, you had a mess sorting a squad late last year and came through. This year will be better prepared. Hope you get up next year, lads. Thank you, pal. Appreciate that. Jackson Pokemon Master says, I wouldn't mind Ilias Chair from QPR as a replacement for Gus. Yes, I think that's a good shout. What did I call him last night? I made myself laugh. I said he's Gus Light in more ways than one. That's funny, isn't it? That's funny. I amused myself saying that. Up the Blades, up the Ramble, like and subscribe. Or Borja Sainz. Don't get me started on Borja Sainz. I don't think we're signing him. I don't think we are. I'll be very surprised. John says Leeds can't buy everyone. Every player linked I've seen for us at Burnley as Leeds interested too. Yeah, exactly, John. Exactly. They want Hamer, Vinny, Cooper, Burrows, Wilder, Shackleton, McCallum. They're not having any of them. Chair not been sent to prison yet? Good question. Lee says, right, I've brave coming on to watch some Blades content. Leo has been in hiding since the result, and some people I've been doing that, and that's okay, pal. Glad to be back. Up the blades, up the ramble, like and subscribe. Thank you, Lee. I hope you're well, pal. Jack says, watching Karate Kid, great live again. Thank you, mate. Wax on, wax off. I don't think I've ever seen that properly. Enjoy, lads. Can't wait for this summer. Get those players in. Lee says, do you think we would sell Peck? Yeah, I do for the right price. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Is it too late to activate the loan options? Yeah, they've gone back, Jay. They've gone back, pal. CB says, most of the links are just media claptrap, not to be taken seriously. I would agree with that at the moment. I would agree with that. I think that's fair. I think there's some scrapping for relevancy and linking because they are obvious players to link. Mikey, thank you very much, pal, for the $4.99. Tried gifting a membership back, Jim, but can't find it. So here's a super chat instead. Great channel, and I'll be sticking around next season. That's great to hear, pal, and thank you. That's very kind of you. Really appreciate that. Paul says, I think Robinson and Wilder's adopted son will both get new contracts. God help us. I don't think Robinson will get a new contract. I hope not anyway. People overcomplicate tactics. 3 centre-backs and 2 wing-backs makes it easier to defend and easier to attack. Nearly all the goals we concede are one-on-ones because we haven't got anybody else covering. Deef. Since when was you live? Since over an hour ago, Maury. I didn't know how many we'd get or how long we'd go for. And I keep getting almost to the end of the comments and then we get another flurry. So welcome to another extended live. We are mate Jimmy. And you're more than welcome here, pal. Good evening, Jimmy. Good evening. Good evening, H from Steps. Enjoying your stream, Jimmy. And looking forward to the players we get in, up the blades, up the ramp. Is H from Steps here? I don't think he's commented yet if he is. John says, summer window is a nightmare. We lost 20 players with 7 or 8 bailing in the last few days. Yes, we did. The team that hammered Luton and Cardiff first 2 games was ripped up, having to play Sunderland with kids. These lads suddenly think they're too good for the champ, even after relegation. Even though we still have Robbo, I think you mean. I think we still need defenders. We certainly do. We certainly do. Phil says, hi, Jimmy. I hope Chris can sort the squad out during the summer so we can have a decent pre-season, which is, in my opinion, is important. Up the ramble. Completely right, it is. Jamie says, oh, we keep Brewster. I like his character, and he's been solid since he's managed to stay away from injuries. Could see during the final, he now trusts his body and isn't afraid of getting injured again. Yeah, I think he's been quoted as saying that somewhere, hasn't he, Jamie? That's it were a good point that he raised. Gutted for you, Jim Bob. I hope you and Connor find a way to still do some content together. Loved watching you both. Thank you, Brad. I'm sure we will. We've been talking about it already in terms of how we can make it work. We're both of the opinion that you shouldn't ever do or I certainly am. I don't mean to speak for Connor, but I'm sure he is of the same opinion. We don't ever want to do content just for content's sake. I don't want a weekly show with Connor that we're both committed to if it's not something that fits and we end up just getting together and, you know, having a pop at each other and having a laugh, you know, at each other's expense. There's got to be some, you know, substance to it, I think is probably the best one. Pre-season location, Platinum exclusive. I'm not telling you. That's for sure. I think we should do a 4-2-2-2 to fit O'Hare in. Brad says, how many do you think you'll sell? We had to sell Somerville, RotR and Archie Gray when we failed in the playoffs. And Kamara, didn't you? You sold Kamara. I know he weren't as big a hitter, but he left as well. He was a first teamer at the time. I think we'll sell 2 or 3, if I'm honest, that we would preferably not sell. So I think 2 or 3 is what we'd have to have in mind. Without wanting to be doom and gloom, says Matthew, it matters not who we sign if we play them out of position or in the same formation or trying to hold on. We lost every pressure game this season, so tactics are the issue. Interesting point. Again, people will agree with that. John says, but my counter to that, Matt, would be where we ended up at the end of the season. John says, getting promoted gets your squad plundered just as bad as relegation or staying down. It's lose-lose. We'll wait and see, mate. No chance Amos stays, says Brad. We'll see. We'll see. I'm certainly not saying he definitely will, but I don't think it's as much of a foregone conclusion as people are making out. Matty says, I think 4-4-2 would be our best formation, but with a diamond in the middle and no wingers. Sousa in CDM. Hamer left centre mid. Peck or Arblaster right centre mid and O'Hare in the cam. Yeah, I can see that. That's an option. Are you a little bit light centrally then? Because obviously they'll have to tuck and squeeze inside, won't they? But then leaves you light on the sides. Interesting. Jimmy Dunn, the signing I'm most excited for, says Jared. Saw Southampton were keeping an eye, though. Tommy K says, don't panic, Jimmy lad. Leeds are down before a ball's been kicked. It's one of them, isn't it, that you'll always get written off straight away. Before you've never mind, the ball's been kicked before transfer window's even opened. Lee says, Leeds fan here, aka champions. Love your content. I think with Wilder in charge, the 3-5-2 works. It's his style and it works. I don't know how the 4-4-2 worked. I agree, mate. How long is it? Has you and your father known Cammy? I'm off work, so I've loads of time to watch YouTube. I watched us versus Swindon, and Cammy was playing, and the captain for them, Blades, won. How long have we known Cammy? Since I was about 10. So they've been pals for 31 years. So, yeah, a long time. Chat Radoni linked, says Maury. Know all about that, pal. Know all about it. We all need a rest. Shane Robinson isn't going. He's had an extra year triggered. Yes, he has, James. He has, pal. Jamie says, staying on till 8.2 tonight. No, I'm not, mate. I'm not. Don't worry about that. We're somewhere where we're 8, 1, 2, 3 we're on. So there you go. My mate Jimmy, I'm glad I've caught you. I'm glad you've caught me as well, Maury. Nice to see you, pal. Good luck with the season ahead, says Adrian. Thank you, pal. We're almost at the end now, guys. Ian says, Jamie, praising Brewster won't guarantee you won't be timed out again. Don't want to keep pestering, but did you manage to have a look at my idea for Behind the Ramble? Yeah, we'll have a chat about it, pal. We'll have a chat. Lee says, against the mighty Whites, your tactics were so wrong, showed us too much respect, and same with Burnley. I certainly think at Elland Road, that's right. I'm not sure about against Burnley. We just weren't at the races against the top two. We're outplayed for whether it be tactical or whether it just be quality on the day. And we have to take it on chin. That's what's lost us promotion, because if either of those two, if we take 6 points off Leeds, we go up. If we take 6 points off Burnley, we go up. But Burnley took 6 points off us and Leeds took 6 points off us. So those are the games that have cost us, essentially. Brad says, we'll swap you Aronson for Hamer if you fancy. No. James says, the one I don't want to sell is Cooper. If I was selling it, would be Nell and Hamer. I don't think we'll sell Michael Cooper. Don't at all. Mohammed Rana says, get rid of fat players from Bangladesh. What I need is for you to be more to the point, Mohammed. And that's a joke, by the way. That was very direct and fair. You were the better team against us at Bramall Lane, to be honest, says Brad. I don't know which. Are you a Leeds fan? Because that would make more sense. Because, yeah, I agree. I think we were for the majority of the game. But for the last 20 minutes, when it counted, you were the better team. So, Scott says, end on a high, up the Ramble, like and subscribe. Maurice says, who's fat from Bangladesh? Leeds fan here says, Rye, I really think you'll win the league next season. I hope you do and we stay up. Good to have a Yorkshire derby in the Prem. Oh, yeah, Brad is Leeds. BBD isn't very good. I'd rather us going for someone with raw pace down the sides, up the blades, up the Ramble, like a Ben Doak, somebody of that ilk, I think. Have a good one. Jimmy says, Finn, now you can have Harrison for Hamer. No, thank you. Michael says, Jimmy, this time last season, Leeds were in the same position as the Blades. They lost 4 of their better players with Somerville, RotR, Gray and Kamara. They invested in areas they needed to strengthen. They did, but easier said than done, Michael. I think that's, you can't just say, oh, look, Leeds did it, so it's easy doable. It's not easy. Where do you find a Tanaka? We found a Cooper, we found Burrows, and another in the EFL, so it's not like they were buried anywhere. But you've got to give them credit for the work that they've done to get those sort of signings over the line. I think we need Tanganga, no, Dunn and Darling. Yeah, I'll go with Dunn and Darling, definitely. Tanganga for the amount we'd have to pay, I don't think he's worth it. Hi, Jimmy, you need any help with your admin? I'm an Excel power user and would help out for note. Dave, drop me a message, pal. Let me know what you can do. I'm all right, to be fair, on the admin side of things. But we are looking to try and expand where we can. So we'll see. If you want to get more involved, then no issue with that. I was going to ask if you'd like to keep Hamza. In an ideal world, yes, but I'm not against us sending him back for 5 million quid. James says, do you think the playoff final was similar to the Leeds game at home? Good for 70 and then tried to hang on. I think we tried to hang on from the minute the VAR goal was disallowed. And that's our mentality. That's not a case of poor us. That's how we should have dealt with that better. CB says, fat players from Bangladesh, too many curries. Mikey says, my observation of you guys from this season was that you always started really well, then sat off in the second half, which is where you fell down in the big games. Completely agree, Mikey. I'm going to go to Scott's original comment to end it. End on a high, Up the Ramble, like and subscribe. Oh, I hope there's more comments coming in. What's going on here? Maury says, can tell you're catching up on comments as fast as you can, mate. Fair play. Thank you, mate. BBD up front with Campbell. BBD ain't a bad left winger. BBD won't come back, Lee, I don't think, pal. Could you see Jack Harrison on loan at Sheffield United? Could see Jack Harrison on loan at Sheffield United, to be honest. I can, if we keep with wingers, and I don't think he'd be bad in Championship, would he, to be honest? I know Leeds fans don't rate him. But if we stick with wingers, I could see that happening. If you want to pay a majority of his wages, that'd be great. Rich says, hi, Jimmy, apologies. I don't know if you read out mine because you had 2 ad breaks. Can you give me your web address to subscribe, please? Thank you. It's on YouTube, pal. We're on. This is where you subscribe to us. We have got bladesramble.com, which is under maintenance. It's probably the best way to do it. I've got somebody working on it who is actually on holiday at the minute, but we're revamping the website. So, yeah, to get all your Blades Ramble news, it is here. Subscribe and tap the bell for notifications so you know, like when we're coming live with very little warning, you won't miss us. Up the Blades, up the flipping Blades, up the Ramble, like and subscribe, says Maury. Full-time Ramble, love that. CB says, nice stream, Jim, Bob. Up the Ramble. And I think that's where his comment ends. I can't really see anything else he's saying. Let's go back to Scott. End on a high. Up the Ramble. Like and subscribe. I'm going to call it there. I am happy with this retained list. It's to be expected. We've got clarity on Jack Robinson. We know he's going to be here for another season. And we'll break it all down in the Rambles to come. Let me know your comments below. I will catch up with them in the end. But thank you for joining us. And for now, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the Blade!